89.7 KLES FM. My name is Richard Harris. The mic is popping. We're fired up for today's show. And, you know, there's a lot to talk about. There's some sad to talk about. There's some good to talk about. There's some bad and some ugly. So let's get it on, as Marvin Gaye would say. There's so much good to talk about in the world of sports that I could do it for about 10 hours today because a lot of good things are happening and there's a lot of feel-good things happening around this country. So let's get started. The first good, well, the baseball playoffs are actually turning into pretty exciting games. Texas and St. Louis both seem poised to, take their series over. And, Texas is up 3-2 in theirs. And, tomorrow night they will be sending out, a couple of their pitchers to try to end this thing. But the interesting part about this series is, baseball shows me each time I watch it why it's my favorite sport. And it's my favorite sport because everything about it is so unpredictable. In football, you diagram plays. You got Vince Lombardi's, you put a man here and a seal here, and you run in the alley. In basketball, you shoot the basketball. The object is to put it in the basket. Most people know when they shoot it if it's going in or not. And hockey, yes, you have an obstruction called a goalie, but pretty much every time you take a shot on goal, you know where it's going. Golf, put the ball in the hole. Tennis, same thing. Hit the ball over a net, hit it to where the person isn't. Very simple. Not baseball. Baseball, crazy things happen. I mean, if you look at the game yesterday, Verlander's one pitch away from being almost a GOAT in the situation. How about Cabrera's ball that he hit? Hit the bag and went 18 feet over Beltre's head. And of course, Tim McCulver is talking about how Alex Avila couldn't hit lefties and he can't hit home, all these things. And next thing you know, he hits a home run off a left-handed pitcher. Or the ball that Ian Kinsler hit. That clearly would have been a double play no matter who hit it, but of all the places to place the ball and hit it, to put it right there. I mean, you can hit the ball as hard as you want to in baseball. You have no control where it's going. And that's why I love that sport. I still think St. Louis will come out of the National League Series. I think Braun and Fielder have shown that they are not crumbling under the pressure, and both of those guys are clearly showing why they are super players in this game. But the reality is, I think Albert Pujols is going to show why he's a $30 million man and why he's the best player still in the game. Game 6 will be barn burners in both games. Did I just say barn burner? But they both will. And so hopefully my Tigers pick at the start of the season may come true still. Cabrera is capable of carrying a team for 2 nights if necessary. And so we'll find out just how good these teams are in the next 3 days. But enough of this baseball stuff. I know most of you people tune into the show to hear the NFL. And this week, we're going to talk about a couple things in the NFL. The first thing we're going to talk about before we do our 3 teams, we're going to talk about the reemergence of the running back. Several running backs last week ran for over 100 yards, and most of those teams won games. San Diego won with the running back running over 100 yards. The Vikings got their first win by rediscovering Adrian Peterson. And yes, we saw Foster get 100 yards against the Raiders, but, can't get it all. But you know what? It's good to see that teams are starting to use their heads in order to be able to maintain victories and leads in the fourth quarter, because football's a simple game. If you can simplify your offense to be able to run it and throw it at the same time, you're unstoppable. I mean, look at Detroit Monday night. Javid Best ran so fast, I thought he was on like one of those PlayStation super warp speed things after he broke off that long run. And of course, they can still throw it. So hopefully this week, we'll see some more of the running backs as the weather is supposed to start taking a turn, but not if you're in LA, because it's supposed to be gorgeous this next few weeks. But I digress for a moment. And so, here are our 3 fwampfwamp teams of this week. And of course, we start off with the Oakland Raiders. How could you not talk about the Raiders and what they did Sunday? Playing with a heavy heart and determination. Found a way to win that game in Houston against a team coming off a huge win. I mean, you have to give the Raiders that. They did everything they were supposed to do Offensively, they threw it well. They ran it enough. That's going to be a game that's going to haunt Houston down the road, folks, especially if Houston and Tennessee stay tied as they are. That's going to be a game that Houston will look back on and say, man, should have had that one. The Raiders are still searching for an identity, and when they run the ball to set up its pass, they are going to be the tough team to beat. But it was a good win for them nonetheless, and we'll talk about the Raiders in the bad section, as you all know, in the next segment. The second team that we'll talk about has to be the Detroit Lions. Detroit has been waiting for their chance to play on Monday Night Football for a long time. They got their shot, and boy, did they not waste it. I mean, they had exciting plays on offense, exciting plays on defense, and the Chicago Bears found out the hard way that this team is absolutely difficult to beat, whether it's trying to stop their run or trying to stop their pass. Calvin Johnson scored another touchdown, so he now has 9 touchdowns through the first 5 games, which is still an NFL record. And we just mentioned how Javid Best, I mean, when he got that handoff and saw an opening, he was gone. So they deserve the props. And yes, folks, I know I could talk about the Patriots and the Packers and the Saints each week as being the top 3 teams in the league, but that's boring. The stories this year in the NFL are the 2 teams that I talked about a minute ago, the Raiders, talked about the Lions, and of course the third team this week, the San Francisco 49ers. They are my number 1 team right now. Because if you think about it, they should be undefeated. They had the Cowboys beaten and just fell apart in the fourth quarter. They're winning games with great mixture, passing the ball and throwing the ball. Last week, Frank Gore had 100-plus yards. Alex Smith didn't have gaudy numbers, but he did enough to win the game. And you got to give him props for that. It's a big, big win for that team. I mean, Tampa Bay is one of those teams that, like I told you before, is a frustrating team to, if you're going to bet them, you're going to have to figure out ways to keep your hair color. But for them to throw an egg, we'll talk about Tampa Bay later on, but, San Francisco did a number to them. Now, losing Morgan is a humongous deal for them. But, just run the football. If you can run the football, which you might be able to do a little bit against Detroit this week, maybe you may maintain your status as one of the top 2 teams in the league. But, that's why they play the games, folks. And who would have thought at the beginning of the season that the game of the season so far would be in Week 5, a San Francisco-Detroit Lion game? If you thought that, then you need to tell me your lottery numbers, because the lottery here is $30 million, and a brother needs to win some money. It's good for football that both teams are playing well. Detroit represents the Midwest. The 49ers represents the old school in the Bay Area. Football can't lose if football's good all around the league and around the country. And we'll be back on 89.7 KLES FM to talk some more good after this.